An entire colony vanishes, leaving behind only one cryptic word carved into wood: Croton. In 1587, more than 100 English settlers landed on Roanoke Island, just off the coast of present-day North Carolina. Led by Governor John White, the group was tasked with building a permanent settlement in the New World. They established homes, planted crops, and began their precarious existence in a land both unfamiliar and unforgiving. But the colonies soon ran short on supplies. White sailed back to England to secure provisions, promising to return swiftly. Instead, war with Spain delayed him for nearly 3 years. When he finally made it back to Roanoke in 1590, the settlement was eerily silent. The houses had been dismantled, stripped of their timbers, and the settlers themselves, men, women, and children, were gone. There were no graves, no bodies, and no signs of violence. The only clue was carved into a wooden post: the word Cro-A-D-O-N. On another tree, the letters Cro were etched. Wyatt instructed the colonists that if they left under duress, they should carve a Maltese cross to signal danger. But there was none. Instead, the mysterious word seemed to point toward Croton Island, home to a native tribe known to the settlers. Theories about the colony's fate have endured for centuries. Some believe the settlers assimilated with local tribes, blending into their communities and losing their English identity. Others suggest they succumbed to starvation, disease, or harsh conditions. Their remains swallowed by the wilderness. There are darker speculations, too, that Spanish forces from nearby Florida destroyed the colony in secret, or that something supernatural erased them altogether. No definitive evidence has ever been found. The Roanoke settlers, once a hopeful beginning for England's presence in America, simply disappeared. The lost colony remains one of America's oldest and eeriest mysteries. Where you are watching, comment, like, and subscribe for more. Strange footprints in the snow. And days later, 6 people slaughtered on their farm. In March of 1922, on a remote homestead in Bavaria known as Hinterkaifeck, the Gruber family lived a quiet but uneasy existence. Days before tragedy struck, they reported hearing strange noises in the attic. Footprints in the snow were discovered leading directly to the farmhouse, but none leading away. The family's maid, unsettled by the eerie events, had already quit. A new maid arrived just hours before the horror began. On the night of March 31st, someone crept onto the property and carried out one of the most brutal crimes in German history. 6 people were killed: Andreas Gruber, his wife Gazilia, their widowed daughter Victoria, her 2 children, and the new maid. Most were lured one by one into barn, where they were struck down with a mattock, their bodies later found stacked and covered with hay. The youngest child, just 2 years old, was killed inside the house. The crime scene baffled investigators. The killer appeared to have stayed at the farm for several days afterward, tending livestock and even eating meals from the kitchen. No valuables were taken. The brutality seemed personal, yet no suspect was ever identified. Theories have haunted the case for over a century. Some suspected a bitter neighbor seeking revenge. Others pointed to robbery gone wrong, though nothing was missing. Whispers of family scandal, involving forbidden relationships and hidden resentments, added fuel to speculation. Still, others believed it could have been the work of a wandering drifter who vanished back into obscurity after the murders. Despite repeated investigations, the truth never emerged. The farm itself was eventually torn down, replaced by nothing more than a memorial to the victims. The farm stood silent until it was torn down, but the killer's identity died with it. Where you are watching, comment, like, and subscribe for more. A modern aircraft, 239 people aboard, and not a trace on radar. On March 8, 2014, Malaysia Airlines flight MH370 departed Kuala Lumpur just after midnight, bound for Beijing. The Boeing 777 carried 239 passengers and crew. For the first hour, everything appeared routine. Then, suddenly, the plane vanished from civilian radar screens. Its final communication was a calm, "Good night, Malaysian 370" from the cockpit. Moments later, the aircraft went silent. Military radar later revealed that the plane had turned sharply off course, veering west across the Malay Peninsula. Its transponders and communication systems had been disabled. The jet flew for hours, tracked faintly by satellites, before disappearing over the vast Indian Ocean. Search planes and ships scoured the waters for weeks, then months, but found nothing. It wasn't until years later that fragments of the plane began to wash ashore, pieces of wing and fuselage discovered on remote Indian Ocean islands. Yet the wreckage was limited, and the black boxes, which might have revealed the truth, were never recovered. The mystery has spawned countless theories. Some investigators believe it was a deliberate act by the pilot, steering the plane into oblivion in a carefully planned suicide. Others suggest a hijacking, perhaps for political motives, though no group has ever claimed responsibility. Mechanical failure has also been raised as a possibility, though experts argue that the deliberate disabling of communications suggests human intervention. More far-reaching ideas propose that MH370 was hidden or destroyed in secrecy. To this day, no one can say with certainty what happened in those final hours. The passengers and crew remain lost, and the crash site undiscovered. The oceans still guard the truth of Flight MH370. Where you are watching, comment, like, and subscribe for more. A district attorney drives away one spring day and never comes back. In April of 2005, Ray Gricker, the long-serving district attorney of Center County, Pennsylvania, told his girlfriend he was taking the day off to enjoy the warm weather. He got into his red Mini Cooper and drove away. That was the last time anyone saw him. Days later, his car was discovered abandoned near a riverbank. Inside were his phone and other personal belongings, but no sign of Ray. Search teams combed the water and surrounding land, but found nothing. Months later, his laptop surfaced in the river, but its hard drive had been removed and destroyed, leaving investigators with more questions than answers. Even more troubling were his internet searches in the days before his disappearance. Records showed he had looked up methods of wiping data from a computer hard drive, fueling theories that whatever happened to him was intentional. Yet there was no clear evidence of suicide or a staged escape. Speculation grew quickly. Some believed Ray may have chosen to vanish on his own terms, leaving behind his career and life. Others suspected suicide, pointing to the river near where his car was found. But many could not ignore his position. A district attorney who had prosecuted major cases, some involving drugs and organized crime. Could his disappearance have been retaliation, or had he stumbled into something larger than himself? Years later, no trace of Ray Gricker has ever been recovered. His story remains open-ended, a mystery that left his colleagues, his family, and his community with only silence. Ray Gricker's fate remains a blank line in Pennsylvania's history books. Where you are watching, comment, like, and subscribe for more. A minister and a secret lover found dead beneath a crabapple tree, their affair exposed in blood. On a September morning in 1922, in New Brunswick, New Jersey, the bodies of Reverend Edward Hall and Eleanor Mills, a married choir singer from his church, were discovered in a field. They were laid side by side beneath a crabapple tree, their heads resting together as if in a grim embrace. Both had been shot. Scattered around them were Eleanor's torn love letters to the Reverend, a cruel detail that revealed their affair to the world. The murder shocked the nation. Here was a respected clergyman, gunned down with a woman who was not his wife. Their passion turned scandal by death. Newspapers seized on every detail, spinning the case into a lurid sensation that dominated headlines. But the investigation soon unraveled. The crime scene was mishandled, evidence carelessly gathered or simply lost. Rumors swirled that the powerful families connected to the case, particularly Reverend Hall's wealthy wife and her influential relatives, interfered with the inquiry. Witnesses later claimed they had seen the couple together that night, and some alleged they heard gunshots, yet accounts shifted and credibility wavered. Theories spread like wildfire. Many believed Eleanor's husband, enraged by betrayal, may have sought revenge. Others suspected Hall's wife, Frances, who stood to protect both her reputation and her fortune. Some even whispered of wider conspiracies, that church members or political figures silenced the lovers to avoid scandal. But despite multiple inquests and even a sensational trial years later, no one was ever convicted. The Hall Mills case remains a tale of love, scandal, and unanswered murder. Where you are watching, comment, like, and subscribe for more. A mother vanishes after her husband takes their children camping. In the middle of a snowstorm, In December 2009, 28-year-old Susan Powell was living with her husband, Josh, and their 2 young sons in West Valley City, Utah. Friends and family describe her as warm, devoted, and increasingly unhappy in her marriage. On the night of December 6th, Josh claimed he decided to take their boys camping at midnight in sub-freezing temperatures with a snowstorm rolling in. Susan stayed behind, or so he said. By the next day, Susan was gone. When she failed to show up for work, friends raised the alarm. Police quickly focused on Josh, who returned with the children hours after Susan had already been reported missing. His explanation shifted, and investigators found troubling evidence inside the home. Susan's purse, identification, and cell phone left behind, along with signs she had never planned to leave on her own. Josh remained the prime suspect, but without a body, prosecutors held back. Over the following years, his behavior only grew more disturbing. He fought bitterly with Susan's family over custody of the children, while police uncovered troubling journals, secret recordings, and allegations of abuse tied to his father, Stephen Powell. In February 2012, the case turned even darker. During a supervised custody visit, Josh lured his sons into his Washington home, locked out the social worker, and set off an explosion that killed himself and the children. The act horrified the nation and ended any chance of hearing Josh's full account of what happened to Susan. To this day, her body has never been found. Some believe Josh hid her remains in Utah's vast desert or concealed them in abandoned mines. Others suspect his family may have known more than they revealed. But with Josh gone, the truth remains hidden. Susan's body has never been found. Her story still haunts Utah. Where you are watching, comment, like, and subscribe for more. 8 people, including 6 children, slaughtered in their sleep. The killer never found. On the night of June 9th, 1912, in the small town of Villisca, Iowa, the Moore family settled in for bed. Josiah and Sarah Moore tucked in their 4 children, while 2 young guests, Lena and Ina Stillinger, prepared to spend the night after a church event. By morning, the entire household was dead. Each victim had been bludgeoned with an axe, the Moores in their beds, the Stillinger girls in the guest room. The killer had used the blunt side of the blade, striking with methodical, merciless force. But it was the details after the murders that unsettled investigators the most. Curtains were drawn, mirrors were covered with cloth, and food had been left out in the kitchen. It appeared the killer had lingered in the home for hours, perhaps watching over the bodies, before disappearing into the night. The brutality of the crime shocked the country. Yet despite dozens of suspects, no one was ever convicted. Some pointed to a local rival of Josiah Moore, who carried bitter grudges and political enmities. Others suspected a transient killer, drifting from town to town, especially since similar axe murders plagued the Midwest around the same time. Still others saw the hallmarks of something ritualistic, a killer compelled by obsession rather than opportunity. More than a century later, the case remains one of America's most infamous unsolved murders. The modest White House in Villisca still stands, preserved much as it was in 1912. And for some who have visited, the sense of that night, the silence, the dread, has never left. The Villisca Axe House still stands, and some believe the spirits of that night never left. Where you are watching, comment, like, and subscribe for more. Dozens of dogs leap to their deaths from the same spot. But why? Since the 1950s, a strange pattern has haunted the Overtown Bridge near Dumbarton, Scotland. Dogs, healthy, happy, seemingly without warning, have been leaping from the same side of the bridge, plunging into the rocky gorge below. Some have survived the fall, only to climb back up and jump again, as though compelled by something beyond instinct. What makes the phenomenon even stranger is its consistency. The leaps almost always occur from the same section of the bridge, and nearly always on clear, calm days. No humans are known to have thrown themselves from Overtown in the same way, but for dogs, the sight has become infamous. Locals whisper that the bridge is cursed, that spirits linger in the surrounding hills, luring animals toward an invisible edge. Scientists have tried to make sense of it. Some point to the scent of mink, whose strong musk could attract dogs with sensitive noses, drawing them over the parapet. Others suggest that the bridge's high walls and design distort the dog's depth perception, making the drop-off appear solid until it's too late. But no single explanation accounts for the sheer number of incidents, or for the eerie detail that dogs who survive often try to jump again, whether it's animal instinct gone tragically awry, or something more unsettling. Overtown Bridge has earned its reputation as the Dog Suicide Bridge. To this day, Overtown is known as the Dog Suicide Bridge. Where you are watching, comment, like, and subscribe for more.